Two white cops spotted a black man cradling his bleeding wife. No questions, no warning. They shouted, then fired. What they didn't know? That man was Lieutenant David Reigns, a decorated Navy SEAL trained in battlefield justice. They didn't just shoot his wife. They declared war on the wrong man. And this war wouldn't be fought with fists. It would be won in court. Lieutenant David Reigns wasn't just any man. At 6'4", with a military posture and eyes that had seen combat zones most people couldn't spell, he embodied quiet strength. Bronze Star recipient, trauma response expert, Navy SEAL with over a decade of classified missions under his belt. But none of that mattered to Officers Denton and Mott when they pulled up and saw a black man holding a bleeding woman in a gas station parking lot. David's wife, Lena, had been inside the station when it happened. A young, panicked boy, barely 17, burst in waving a gun. He wasn't trying to be a killer, just a thief too scared to back down. But one twitch of his finger, and everything changed. A shot fired wild. It ricocheted. Lena took it to the ribs, and when David heard her scream, he ran. Faster than his training, faster than his fear. She collapsed in his arms, blood soaking through her white sundress, her breath hitching in pain. David did what he was trained to do. He assessed, applied pressure, called 911. But help never came. Instead, flashing lights filled the lot. Officers Denton and Mott leapt out of their cruiser before it even stopped moving. Guns drawn, aggressive, shouting, "Put her down. Hands where we can see them." "She's been shot," David shouted, hands still pressing Lena's side. "I'm helping her. She's my wife." But they didn't listen. They saw black skin, muscles, blood. They saw threat, not trauma. Then the unthinkable happened. Bang. One of the officer's guns discharged again. A second bullet tore through Lena's shoulder. Her body convulsed in David's arms. For a split second, he thought she died right there. David fell to his knees, not out of fear, but because rage and heartbreak hit him harder than any battlefield. His hands trembled, not from weakness, but from restraint. He could have disarmed them both in less than 5 seconds, but this wasn't a battlefield, and he refused to become their stereotype. Instead, he did what they never expected. He stayed calm, deadly calm. At the station, their report painted a story of a non-compliant suspect, an aggressive male, a chaotic scene. Conveniently, it left out the part where they never called an ambulance. It skipped how Lena was already shot before they arrived. And of course, it ignored the fact that David Reigns was a decorated Navy SEAL whose only weapon was a phone. That night, David made one call. Not to a lawyer, not to the media. He called his commanding officer. The next morning, a convoy rolled into Hartsfield. JAG officers, military investigators, a legal team built for war. David didn't want revenge. He wanted something far more permanent. Justice that left a mark. Within hours, dashcam footage from David's car was released. It showed everything. Lena bleeding. David applying aid. Cops pulling up, shouting, then firing. The internet exploded. Hashtags, headlines, national outrage. But David stayed quiet until Lena woke up. She opened her eyes in the ICU, tubes everywhere, and whispered, "Don't let them win." He didn't. The lawsuit was surgical, not just against the officers, but the department, the city, the entire system that saw his skin before they saw his service. In court, David wore his full dress blues. When he stood to testify, the room fell silent. "I've faced enemy fire overseas," he said, voice steady. "But I've never feared for my life like I did when 2 American cops pointed their weapons at me while I was cradling my dying wife." The jury didn't take long. Guilty, excessive force, racial bias, failure to render aid. Officer Denton was stripped of his badge. Officer Mott was suspended indefinitely. But David wasn't done. He pushed for statewide reform, and he won. The Reigns Law was passed, a new regulation requiring all responding officers to provide medical assistance before using force and mandating independent civilian reviews for all bias complaints. Later that year, David launched a nonprofit, Red Doesn't Lie, a legal support network for Black veterans and their families. Lena, scars still fresh, stood beside him at the first press conference. "My husband had every reason to snap," she said, voice firm. But instead, he stood taller, and that's what real power looks like. And David, he didn't raise a fist. He raised a law. Because sometimes, the most dangerous man isn't the one holding a weapon. It's the one holding his ground. If this story hit you hard, share it right now. Drop a comment. Real strength stays calm.